Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and in this week with Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh, we have a lot to catch up, especially considering the fact that an important event is coming up, and HRD Ministry in India is now again declared as Education Ministry. So all that, Dr. Parikh, welcome, Namaste.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
So let me begin by requesting you to share how was the last week for you? Anything that you felt was very important, fascinating, exciting?
Well, I mean, this announcement of the August 5th Bhumi Pujan of the Ayodhya temple, it's really very exciting, very fascinating, and very satisfying because it's happening after 500 years of Ayodhya temple, which was destroyed.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about Bhagwan Ram and Indian culture. As you are aware, and all of us have known right from our childhood, that at many places when you meet people, they greet saying Ram Ram. And so Ram, and if I also recollect the other side of life where when the body is carried, there is another chant that Ram Nam Satya hai. So talk to me about your early impressions or recollection when you felt that Ram, Bhagwan Ram, is an integral part of Indian culture, whichever state you come from.
That is true. It is always integral part of the whole India. But doesn't matter where you come from, particularly all the Hindus of the Hindu population of the India, and so that's why when they greet somebody, they say Ram Ram, because then that's the best way to remember, even greet somebody as well as remember some God. At the same time, when you depart, also you say Ram Ram. So that is again, it's remembering the God, and remembering and giving your respect to the other person with the not simple name, but name of the God.
And now, if I take the liberty of recollecting some of the references of recent past. There was a government with reference to Ram Setu in Supreme Court. They gave affidavit that Ram didn't exist. You might be aware of that, and those kind of stands, official stands of the government, also plays on the minds of people. You want to say something about that?
Well, I mean, that is a kind of not very correct statement from the government of day that time. But and I think Ram, it's a mythological avatar, and we all believe in it. All Hindus believe in it, and so it's a faith. And when there is a faith of something or some God or something, there is no argument and there is no discussion. It's a fact and remains fact.
So historically speaking, the place which is considered to be the place of the birthplace for Bhagwan Ram, and there was no temple. So it, in addition to being a spiritual and religious reference, also relates to self-esteem, collective self-esteem of Hindu population, not just in India, but away from India also. So that makes it a real important historical event. And in that context, there is a lot of excitement outside India, including in America also.
Yes, of course, it has to be. I mean, it is very obvious and natural and expected. Yeah.
So we learn a lot from Bhagwan Ram, and just quickly recollecting with you that on 5th August, the important inaugural ceremony will take place, for which Prime Minister Narendra Modi and indeed there will be a select group of people present there. Now, there are many sort of questions raised due to COVID-19. Is it necessary for the Prime Minister to be there? And indeed, some questions came up from the opposition leaders like Owaisi, etc., that Prime Minister should respect secular nature of India and shouldn't go there. I know this is a kind of very overstretched sort of take, which makes it controversial, which is avoidable. But what do you feel about these comments?
No, I think what Prime Minister is doing is correct thing. I would argue other way around that Prime Minister also being because our country is secular country, so Prime Minister has to take care of all the religion, but also the most important is majority religion, and there is nothing wrong in Prime Minister going and inaugurating such a historical event.
Absolutely. So now we look forward to 5th August, but then Bhagwan Ram's Ramcharit Manas by Tulsidas ji, his birth anniversary also was celebrated recently. Um, there is a lot of teaching in the Ramcharit Manas also from the life of Bhagwan Ram. But let us talk about the education policy of India, which was considered, which was named as HRD Ministry. Now back, it will be become Education Ministry. Uh, how do you see this change and e- taking a cue from this overall about the national education policy of India, having grown up in India? Any impressions that you have, something that you want to share?
So can you just recollect what is HRD minister's latest announcement?
Basically, what has happened is there was a suggestion that this HRD ministry should be renamed as Education Ministry, and then they sought people's response to it, and there have been majority response in favor of renaming it as Education Ministry, and BJP has also promised for restructuring national education policy. So, in that context, the question of education system in India comes to the center. And in that context, I requested you to share first, leaving aside the current reference, your own views as you have studied in India.
Well, I mean, I would suggest that by renaming the HRD minister to educational ministry, it's fine. I mean, that doesn't take away anything from the existing structure. And every government has right to restructure the format of the education in the country, and government of the day has to come up with a proposal, detailed proposals, and obviously this proposal has to go through the, if it is national proposal, then it has to go through the parliament as well as in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and if majority agrees, then that's fine. Only thing is, only one point is that when you restructure the educational whole format, uh, we make sure that we do not leave any historical facts out, because always you learn from the history, whether you agree on those historical facts or not. It was fact, means it was happened. So whatever is happened, good, bad, or ugly, one should not remove completely and try to kind of repackage in different way. So that's only my take into this. Otherwise, every government has right to reform the educational system, and one must reform, because one has to be up to date with the time and the place, time of the century of the world, and the other and to compete with the other countries, one must reform the educational system.
I think you brought very important points, and that has been probably the key concern of many people, that we were not taught correct history. And there are some other narratives with some facts that some important aspects of history were kept away. And then there is another side which I would also like your comment on, that there has been a policy right from India's independence that many of the references, which whether you call them coming from Sanatan Dharma or which have some roots in the Hindu culture, were kept consciously away from the mainstream education to protect a sense of secular nature. Whereas, call it yoga or certain teachings of Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita, they are relevant for humankind. I am sure these questions would again crop up, considering that the majority party which is leading is more rooted in the understanding of Indian culture. So, do you see that developing into some?
No, that is fine. That is fine. I mean, as I say, that government of the day has all right to put forward their thoughts, their thinking, and their wish. And then again, because it's a democracy, so obviously there will be a hot discussion to and fro, plus and minus, or pro and against, and let it be, and then and let majority decide whether which point has to be there, which point has not to be there, and so forth. So I think the conclusion, we should not judge, or we should not impose on anybody unless it's well discussed and approved by majority.
Absolutely.
That's a democracy.
Agreed, agreed. When I say agreed, I mean, I know it is easy for both of us to agree, but when it comes on the floor of the house and there are people who
Well,
have
that's
their own.
that's that's the beauty about democracy. Let them discuss.
Right,
So
right.
we'll learn something more about it.
Absolutely. So one more reference today, Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh, and I especially recollect your being Padma Shri, as that brings you a little closer to the official stand of India in spirit. So the question is, somebody has filed a case in probably Supreme Court that in 1976, when word secular and socialist were included in the constitution, it was not done in the right way. So they have sort of pleaded that they be taken out. It is going to be a long drawn thing, but off the cuff, what is your quick response to it? And you are aware that during emergency and just the way in a hush hush manner, the word secular and socialist was included.
Well, I mean, whether whatever is our individual opinion about those things, but obviously, when we got independence, our forefather, so-called wise men, constituted the constitution, and that constitution, till we amend that constitution with the 2/3 of majority, we cannot. We have to abide by that. Whether some people may not like one point and other people may not like other point, but we cannot just remove unilaterally either. Has to be proposed, discussed, and passed with the 2/3 of majority in order to amend whatever it is there which we don't like.
So what you are saying is the general procedure, and here it is slightly different because they say that it was in 1976, which was not the original constitution. So it is an additional amendment. But we leave it at that and let the time tell us more about it. As we conclude today's conversation, your parting words, and I'm sure some words of wisdom about how to respect the challenge of COVID-19.
Well, I mean, again, it's really COVID virus is still here. We have to be very careful. It's not gone. We must behave a very responsible way. As we can see, when we can see that a lot of young population and some even old population also not following the guideline or instruction, and that's why there is a rise in the positive COVID cases, and that is not good sign. So we have to be more responsible, We have to be cover our face. We have to be keep the distance and keep the hygiene. And I think that mantra we have to repeat every week in order to control this COVID virus problem. So that's my, real advice or suggestion to everyone. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. God bless America. God bless India. Thank you.